Andre, at 38 years old, believed in the integrity of solid things. He believed in the precise click of a tumbler falling into place, the satisfying weight of a steel deadbolt, and the quiet security of a well-made lock. His locksmith shop, Cascade Keys, nestled on a modest street in Atlanta's Cascade Heights, was a testament to this belief. It was a small, clean space that smelled of metal shavings and lubricating oil, a place of order and tangible solutions. His income, a steady $64,000 a year, wasn't extravagant, but like the locks he serviced, it was reliable. He wore an $89 Timex watch with a worn leather band and drove a 2012 Toyota Camry with 187,000 miles on the odometer. His life was built not on flash, but on a foundation he thought was unshakable. He was wrong. The text message that would shatter this foundation arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, the day of his 11th wedding anniversary. He was at his workbench, meticulously rekeying a schlaggy lock set for a neighborhood church, the tiny pins and springs laid out on a velvet mat. His phone, a 3-year-old Samsung that cost him $250, buzzed on the corner of the bench. He wiped a smudge of graphite from his thumb and picked it up, expecting a message from his wife, Simone. They had plans that evening, a special dinner she had been arranging for weeks. A surprise, she'd said, her voice laced with an excitement he mistook for affection. He smiled, thinking of the gift he'd bought her, a simple, elegant silver locket costing $350 that he planned to put a tiny photo of them in from their first year of marriage. He thought it was the kind of sentimental gift that mattered more than its price tag. He had no idea how wrong he was. The message wasn't from Simone. It was from an unknown number. "Hi, Andre," it began, a casualness that felt immediately strange. "This is Chloe from Lux Catering. Just confirming the final seating chart for tonight's event at the Pinnacle Rooftop. Simone wanted you to have a copy. See you there?" Attached was a PDF file. Andre's brow furrowed. Why would a caterer be texting him? He tapped the file, and it bloomed open on his small screen. It was a professionally designed chart for a large, circular rooftop space, dotted with 80 names at 10 different tables. He saw his parents' names, his sisters, his 2 best friends from college. He saw Simone's family, her friends, and dozens of people he barely knew. Colleagues from the high-end marketing firm where she worked. And then, at table 1, next to Simone's name, he saw his own. Beside it, in small, crisp letters, was a designation that made the air leave his lungs in a single, silent rush. Andre, ex-husband. His world, once as solid as a bank vault, had just been picked clean. What does a man do when he discovers his life is a lie just hours before he's meant to celebrate it? Do you scream? Do you break something? Do you call and confront the source of the betrayal? Andre did none of those things. He simply stood there, the scent of metal and oil filling his nostrils, the hum of the fluorescent lights above his workbench suddenly deafening. The world had narrowed to the glowing screen of his phone, to those 2 devastating words, ex-husband. It wasn't a typo. It was a title, a proclamation. And Simone had arranged for it to be delivered in front of 80 of their closest friends and family on their anniversary at a rooftop venue that probably cost more than he made in 3 months. This wasn't just a breakup. It was a public execution, a spectacle. He thought of her smile that morning, the way she kissed his cheek and told him to be ready by 7. It was all a performance. The entire past year, maybe more, had been a stage play, and he was the only one who didn't have the script. He locked the door to his shop, the deadbolt sliding home with a heavy, final thud. He needed to go home. He needed to think. And he needed to find a document his father had made him sign over a decade ago. a document he had barely read, a document Simone surely believed was nothing more than forgotten paper. If you've ever felt the ground crumble beneath your feet, let me know in the comments what you did in that first moment of shock. Andre's first move was to walk to the dusty filing cabinet in the back of his shop, his steps eerily calm. The real surprise party, he realized, was just getting started. The facade of their life had been built with his hands and decorated with her ambitions. Their two-bedroom apartment in a quiet, older building in West End cost them $1,650 a month in rent, a sensible figure he was proud of. He was the one who fixed the leaky faucet in the kitchen, who patched the drywall when a picture fell, who spent a whole Saturday refinishing the small wooden balcony so they could have a place to sit on warm evenings. These were acts of service, the language of his love. He'd cook dinner most nights, simple meals of grilled chicken and roasted vegetables, which they'd eat on their $400 crate and barrel dining table. He found a quiet joy in this domestic rhythm, in the steady, unassuming life they had built. Simone, however, saw the apartment not as a home, but as a temporary holding cell. She spoke of Buckhead as if it were a promised land, a place of glass towers and valet parking where their real lives were waiting to begin. "Can you imagine, Dre?" she'd say, scrolling through listings for $4,500 a month condos on her new $1,200 iPhone. "We'd have a view, a real view, not just Mrs. Henderson's prize-winning roses." She said it with a light, teasing laugh, but her eyes held a glint of genuine hunger that made him uneasy. He would look at his hands, calloused from his work, and feel a chasm opening between them. He was a man who built things to last. She was a woman who wanted to lease something new. Her spending had become a source of quiet, simmering tension. While he managed the shop's finances with meticulous care, tracking every box of key blanks and every can of WD-40, she treated their joint account like a magical, regenerating spring. A $2,400 Burberry dress would appear in her closet, justified as a networking essential for a work event. A weekend trip to a spa with her cousin Raina would result in a $1,800 charge on their credit card. "You have to invest in yourself, Andre," she'd explain, her tone patient, as if instructing a child. "Appearance is everything in my world." Raina was a constant presence, a whisper in Simone's ear. She was Simone's first cousin, a woman who wore her ambition like a designer coat, all sharp angles and expensive fabrics. Raina worked in wealth management, and she viewed Andre's modest life with a kind of fascinated pity. The two of them would sit on their $1,500 West Elm sofa, sipping $50 bottles of Sauvignon Blanc, their voices dropping whenever he entered the room. He once overheard Raina, her voice dripping with condescension. "He's a good man, Simone, a simple man." "But is simple going to get you a corner office? Is it going to get you a summer home in Martha's Vineyard?" He heard Simone's quiet, non-committal hum, a sound that wounded him more than any argument ever could. He remembered their 10th anniversary just a year ago. He had saved for months to buy her a pair of diamond earrings, small but elegant, costing him nearly $1,000. He presented them to her over a dinner he'd cooked himself. She'd smiled, a quick, polite flash of teeth. "They're sweet, Dre, thank you." The next week, he saw the box on her dresser, unopened. When he asked why she hadn't worn them, she sighed. "They're just not really my style. A little understated, you know?" Understated. Like his life. Like his love. He later saw a charge on their statement for a $3,800 Cartier bracelet. "Raina got me an amazing discount," she'd said breezily when he asked. "It was practically an investment." He didn't argue. He just retreated further into the quiet, logical world of his shop, a place where things made sense, where value was measured in durability, not in brand names. He was living in a house he'd built, but he was slowly realizing he was the only one who considered it a home. The cruelty had escalated so gradually, he'd almost mistaken it for a change in the weather, a slow, cooling trend he couldn't quite put his finger on. It began with little jabs, comments made with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. They'd be at a dinner party with her work colleagues, all of them in finance and marketing, talking about stock options and quarterly earnings. The host, a vice president named Marcus, who drove a $90,000 Porsche, would turn to Andre. "And what is it you do, Andre?" Before he could answer, Simone would jump in, her laugh a little too loud. "Oh, Andre's an artist. He works with his hands. He's a lock and key artisan." She made it sound quaint, like he churned butter for a living. The table would offer polite, confused smiles. Later in the car, he'd say, "Why didn't you just say I own a locksmith business?" She would wave a dismissive hand, her diamond rings catching the street lights. "Please, Dre, it sounds so blue collar. I was just trying to frame it in a way they'd understand. You know how they are." He knew what she meant. She was embarrassed. The embarrassment soon curdled into open disdain. One Saturday morning, he was on his hands and knees in the living room, carefully fixing a wobble in their expensive coffee table. It was a $2,000 piece of minimalist furniture she and Raina had picked out, and one of the legs had been poorly manufactured. He had the tools out, carefully shimming the leg with a piece of hardwood. Simone walked in, dressed for brunch in a $600 silk blouse and designer jeans that cost another $400. She looked down at him, her lip curling slightly. "Honestly, Andre, can't you just call someone to do that? You look like a handyman." "I am a handyman," he said, his voice quiet. "It's what I do. I fix things. And it's saving us a $200 service call." "It's not about the money," she snapped, her voice sharp. "It's about the image. My friends have people for this sort of thing. It's just unbecoming." She turned and walked out, leaving him on the floor with his tools and the stinging silence. The word unbecoming hung in the air, a verdict on his entire existence. He fixed the table. It was rock solid when he was done. But something else in the room was now irrevocably broken. The financial betrayals became more brazen. He had set up their joint account when they first married, a symbol of their partnership. He deposited his earnings into it, paid their shared bills from it, and trusted her to do the same. But he started noticing large, unexplained withdrawals. When he finally got the courage to ask, she reacted with theatrical outrage. "Are you accusing me of something, Andre? Are you checking up on me?" she demanded, her eyes blazing. "Raina and I are looking at a small investment property. It's a silent partnership. I can't discuss the details, but trust me, this is for us. This is for our future." He wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that this woman, the one he had vowed to build a life with, was working towards the same goals. But her future seemed to be a place he wasn't invited. It was a future of galas he felt uncomfortable at, of friends who looked through him, of luxury items that felt like a foreign language. He remembered one night coming home late after an emergency call, a family locked out of their house with a baby inside. He was tired, smelling of grease and cold night air. He walked into the apartment to find Simone and Raina sitting with a bottle of champagne, laughing over a stack of glossy brochures for European river cruises. "Look who it is, the hero of the working class," Raina said with a smirk. Simone didn't even look up. "Did you at least get a good tip?" she asked, her voice flat. He felt a cold wave of anger, something he rarely allowed himself to feel. "I helped a family get back into their home, Simone, on a freezing night. It wasn't about the tip." She finally looked at him, her expression one of profound boredom. "That's nice, Dre, but nice doesn't pay for a balcony suite on the Danube." She turned back to Raina, dismissing him completely. He stood in the doorway of his own home, feeling like an intruder. He saw the price tags on everything around him: the $5,000 custom rug, the $3,000 abstract painting, the $150 champagne flutes in their hands, and realized that he was the only thing in the room she considered to be without value. The accumulation of these moments, these 1,000 tiny cuts of cruelty and dismissal, had been leading to this. The rooftop party wasn't an impulsive act. It was a consummation. It was the grand finale of her long, quiet campaign to erase him from the life she was so desperate to build. At 3:12 p.m., Andre was holding a small brass pin in a pair of tweezers, his focus absolute. The buzz of his phone was an unwelcome intrusion. When he read the text from Chloe at Lux Catering, the world didn't just stop. It inverted. The familiar, solid objects of his workshop, the key-cutting machine, the rows of colorful key blanks, the heavy steel vise, suddenly seemed alien and distant. He felt a profound sense of dislocation, as if he were watching a movie of his own life. He tapped the PDF again, his thumb trembling slightly. He zoomed in, his mind refusing to process what his eyes were seeing. The pinnacle. It was one of the most exclusive venues in Buckhead, a glass-encased jewel atop a skyscraper that looked down on the rest of the city. He'd seen pictures of it in magazines. A single event there could easily cost $30,000 or $40,000. Where did she get that kind of money? The chilling answer hit him immediately: the joint account. The investment property she and Raina were supposedly looking into. It was all a lie. The money wasn't for their future. It was for his public demolition. He scrolled through the guest list. It was a masterful collection of people designed for maximum impact. His mother and father, deeply traditional people who believed in the sanctity of marriage. His sister, who had always been a little wary of Simone's ambition. His business mentor, Mr. Harrison, the man who had sold him the shop and taught him everything he knew. And then her side, her parents, who always treated him with a detached politeness, her legion of sharp-suited colleagues, and of course, at table 1, seated next to Simone, was her cousin Raina, listed simply as maid of honor. The title was so absurd, so grotesquely inappropriate, that a dry, humorless laugh escaped his lips. Maid of honor at a divorce party. The document was titled Simone's New Chapter Celebration. The cruelty of it was breathtaking in its precision. This wasn't just a breakup, it was a rebranding. She was launching the new Simone, free from the anchor of her simple, locksmith husband. The seating chart was the press release. He felt a cold, sharp clarity pierce through the initial shock. This had been planned for months: the quiet withdrawals, the hushed phone calls, her recent trips to the designer outlets with Raina. They weren't just shopping, they were scouting. They were planning his funeral, and he was expected to sit at the head table. His body started to react before his mind could catch up. A wave of nausea washed over him. He stumbled to the small, grimy sink in the corner of the shop and splashed cold water on his face. He looked at his reflection in the cheap, cracked mirror. He saw a man who had believed in quiet work, in loyalty, in the promises he had made 11 years ago in a small church. That man was a fool. That man was about to be the guest of honor at his own humiliation. He leaned against the sink, the cold porcelain pressing against his forehead. The tagline from the catering company's logo at the bottom of the PDF floated in his mind. Lux Catering, crafting unforgettable moments. They had no idea. Then, another feeling began to surface, pushing through the pain and the shock. It was a cold, hard resolve. It started in his gut and spread through his chest, a feeling as solid and unyielding as tempered steel. She thought he was simple. She thought he was weak. She and Raina had laughed at him, underestimated him, and assumed he was too naive to see what was happening. They had made a critical mistake. He dried his face with a rough paper towel, his movements becoming deliberate, precise. He walked back to his workbench, picked up his phone, and looked at the PDF one more time. He saw his name, followed by the two words that were meant to destroy him: Andre, ex-husband. A slow, thin smile touched his lips. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had just been handed the key to his own cage. The drive home from the shop was an exercise in surreal detachment. The familiar streets of Atlanta, the traffic on Cascade Road, the evening light filtering through the pine trees. It all looked the same, but felt fundamentally different, like a set he was seeing for the first time. He was no longer a husband driving home to his wife. He was an actor on his way to a final, unrehearsed scene. His mind was a maelstrom of rage and grief, but his face in the rearview mirror was a mask of calm. He had to play his part perfectly. He walked into their apartment at 6:15 p.m. Simone was in the bedroom, the air thick with the scent of a $180 Chanel perfume. She was standing in front of a full-length mirror, adjusting the straps of a shimmering silver dress that must have cost at least $3,000. It was a dress for a gala, not an anniversary dinner. "Hey, you're back," she said, her voice bright and airy. She turned, giving him a dazzling smile. "What do you think? Is it too much?" He looked at her, at the dress, at the carefully constructed facade of a loving wife. He felt a profound emptiness. "You look beautiful, Simone," he said, and the lie tasted like ash in his mouth. Stunning. It was the first of many lies he would have to tell that evening. "Good," she said, turning back to the mirror. "Raina said I needed to make a statement tonight. It's an important night for us." The dramatic irony was so thick he could have choked on it. He went to their closet to pick out a suit. His side was a collection of simple, functional clothes: work shirts, jeans, 2 suits for weddings and funerals. Her side was an explosion of color and designer labels, a boutique curated with their joint savings. He pulled out his best suit, a simple navy one he'd bought for $450 at Macy's 5 years ago. "Oh, not that one, Dre," she said, not even looking at him. "Wear the charcoal one. It's more sophisticated. We need to look like a power couple tonight." He obediently took out the charcoal suit. As he was getting dressed, she came over and straightened his tie, her fingers cool against his neck. It was a gesture that a week ago would have felt intimate. Now, it felt like a mortician preparing a body. "Are you feeling okay?" she asked, her brow furrowed with fake concern. "You seem quiet." "Just tired," he lied again, his voice steady. "Long day at the shop. Thinking about the big surprise tonight." Her smile returned, radiant and predatory. "Oh, it's going to be a night you'll never forget," she promised. "I've made sure of it." He had no doubt she was telling the truth. As they prepared to leave, she handed him a small gift-wrapped box. "Happy anniversary," she said. He opened it. Inside was a pair of gold cufflinks, easily worth $800. Engraved on them were the initials SB. "They're for your new chapter," she said, her eyes gleaming. It took him a second to understand. SB wasn't for him. It was for her future husband, Simone B. She was already dropping his last name. This was a prop for her performance, a gift to a man who was already a ghost. "They're amazing, Simone." "Thank you," he said, his voice a marvel of control. He even managed a small smile. He put the cufflinks on. Each one felt like a tiny, cold shackle. He had the locket he'd bought for her in his pocket. He left it there. It felt like an artifact from another life, a relic of a love that had never really existed. They walked out of the apartment together, her arm linked through his, a perfect picture of a happy couple on their way to a celebration. He felt nothing but the cold, hard weight of the certified papers in his inside jacket pocket, resting against his heart. The curtain was about to go up. Have you ever had to pretend everything was fine when you knew your world was falling apart? It takes a strength most people don't know they have. Andre was discovering he was stronger than he, or his wife, had ever imagined. The moment Andre decided not to break, not to scream, but to act, was the moment the balance of power shifted, even if only he knew it. He spent the hour before going home in the back office of his shop, a cramped space filled with old invoices and parts catalogs. He sat at his worn wooden desk, the one his father had used for 30 years before him. First, he called his bank. He logged into their online portal and confirmed his worst fears. The joint savings account, which should have held over $48,000, a combination of his business profits and their shared savings, was nearly empty. A series of large transfers had been made over the past 2 months to an account he didn't recognize. The final transfer, for $15,000, had been made just last week. The balance was now $72.14, the cost of the party, the cost of his public execution. He felt the rage rise, hot and acidic, but he forced it down. Emotion was a luxury he couldn't afford. He needed precision. He needed a plan. He thought of his father, a man of few words but immense foresight. He remembered the day before his wedding, his father sitting him down at this very desk. "Son, I love you, and I hope you and Simone have a long, happy life," he'd said, his voice gruff with emotion. But love can't be the only thing holding things together. Business is business, family is family. Sometimes you have to protect one from the other. His father had slid a thick document across the desk. It was a premarital revocable trust. "Our family lawyer, Mr. Jennings, drew this up. It puts the shop, this building, and the business name Cascade Keys into a trust. You're the beneficiary. If anything happens, God forbid, the business is protected. It belongs to the trust, not to the marriage. Just sign it. It's for the best." At the time, Andre had felt a pang of guilt. It felt cynical, unromantic, but he trusted his father. He'd signed it without reading past the first page, a summary of intent. He had filed it away and hadn't thought about it in 11 years. He was sure Simone had done the same. He remembered her laughing it off. "Oh, your dad is so old-fashioned." "Of course, darling. Whatever he wants." He was certain she and Raina, for all their supposed financial savvy, had dismissed it as the meaningless paperwork of a sentimental old man. They would have assumed any standard prenup could be contested. But this wasn't a standard prenup. A revocable trust was a different animal entirely. He found the number for his father's old lawyer, now semi-retired. He explained the situation in a low, steady voice. The lawyer, a sharp old man named David Jennings, listened without interruption. When Andre finished, there was a pause. "Andre, your father was a wise man," Jennings said. "The trust is ironclad. The business, the building it sits on,